I got into breathwork, and a lot of that comes from India, and that's actually where the name Neuma comes from. It comes from Neuma, which just took off the P, which means breath or life or spirit in Greek. So it has a connection. The idea is to find that life spirit and that life energy, and if you can infuse everything you do, particularly your business, with that, then your business is going to prosper and thrive. The ancient teachers and teachings knew this.
Today, I'm honored to be speaking with Mr. Jonathan Quail, Managing Director at Neuma Resources and Energy. Jonathan has extensive experience helping businesses achieve their full potential. Apart from Neuma Resources and Energy, he's also a founder at LifeBuild. Thanks, Jonathan, for being with us here. If you can just throw some lights on your background and how did you actually start off your journey and what made you, get interested in the investment banking market and industry.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. And I think it's a great idea, so I'm just happy to be part of it. My background, I started my journey, I guess, when I studied in Cape Town University. I did a business science degree majoring in finance, and decided really that it did interest me. I was much more interested in that than accounts and auditing and economics and all the other subjects I studied. So it kind of grabbed me then, but I went my own way. I decided I was a young man at the time. I had a dream to be a professional squash player. So it was then or never. It's like, well, if I go into the corporate world now and do 4 years of articles, because I was supposed to be doing accounting and doing becoming an accountant. So I had a bursary to do that. But I had to make a choice. So it was the road less traveled. I decided, I need to cut that short. I'm not gonna complete the honors and do my articles and do the whole accounting thing. And became a professional squash player. And that was really my first business, because I was essentially an entrepreneur. I had to work it out myself. I had to fund my own trips. Try and get my world ranking up. I managed to get some sponsorship. I came to the UK. I managed to get some sponsorship from a local company. So I remember going around, to various businesses in the high street, pitching myself. So essentially, it was an entrepreneurial endeavor as well as a sporting endeavor. So that's where I kind of cut my teeth, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the freedom, and I enjoyed it. There's always risk. But I realized that was sort of where I was at. So fundamentally, I guess I'm an entrepreneur. I think entrepreneurially, and I think that's really important to have that mindset if you're going to go into investment banking, because if you understand how entrepreneurs think, then you're going to be able to help other entrepreneurs to succeed much better than I think the danger with investment banking today is it's become very un-entrepreneurial. The big banks. They have their standards and their processes and their procedures, and they will give money to those who don't really need money, but those who need money, they don't give it to. But that's kind of the whole point. They needed the money. If people in investment banking 150 years ago, I think of my own country, South Africa, there were investment bankers who loaned these entrepreneurs money to start the gold mining industry. Now, that was highly risky. This was like venture stuff. Yes, they'd found some gold, but there was no guarantee, that this reef would last, and there would have been all kinds of risks, but they did it. And as a result, a major industry was born, and that really built the economic wealth of the whole country for 100 years. So they were willing to take risk, and I think that's where I see the opportunity for people like me who are not not a top tier. Never worked for the likes of Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and the big boys. But there's a sort of a lower tier. There's a mid tier where there's opportunity, and I don't think the investment banks are really servicing that. So anyway, I digress a bit, but come back to my journey. So when I realized that I wasn't going to achieve my squash dream, I decided to go into business. I started with an online business, web development. My sister got into web development. It was early 2000s.
Wow.
So it was that, the web was the new technology, and it was like, yeah, I can see there's an opportunity to do people's websites for them. So that's how it started. And I learned a lot about online marketing and the web, and then I started LifeBuild with a friend because I had this passion for personal growth and development. A lot of my career in squash was really about mastering myself. I learned breathwork techniques. I changed my diet. I did a lot of physical training. I pushed my body to the extremes that some people don't. And I learned meditation, all to improve my squash. But it was really a sort of program of personal and spiritual development. And when I had to let go of the squash dream, because I just got too old and I realized, look, I just run out of time here. Then I was in actually quite a good position. It had been good preparation for the next phase of my career, which was entrepreneurial. And so I started a business called Quirk Solutions. We did web development, and then concurrently LifeBuild. That was part-time, but about 2006 I gave up the web development. I went full-time into LifeBuild. I split up my partner and really decided that was what really speaks to me, and it still does, to help people to change their mindset, to learn skills that are really helpful in their life, to find a way of letting go of negativity, to find peace and love and joy. And this is the kind of this is what every great spiritual teaching. You're from India, you're well familiar.
Exactly. I have been in spirituality when I was in my 20s, mid-20s to late 20s. I remember. I think this is a very different world that we basically are into. And then I started meditation when I was 25 years old or something like that. I'm 35 now, so I've been meditating since then.
And a lot of the wisdom comes from the East, from India, sort of the home of spirituality. So maybe there's a reason why we're talking. What I've tried to do is integrate that into my life. So I don't sit for hours and hours in meditation and just do that. I'm active. I'm working. I do a meditation. Hour meditation every day, and I have other spiritual practices, but I weave it into my life. So I think that's for me that path works, and for a lot of people that works. I got into breath work. And a lot of that comes from India, and that's actually where the name Neuma comes from. It comes from Neuma, which just took off the P, which means breath or life or spirit in Greek. So it has a connection. The idea is to find that life spirit and that life energy. And if you can infuse everything you do, particularly your business, with that, then your business is going to prosper and thrive. The ancient teachers and teachings knew this. They knew that the breath and life and this spirit of entheos, as the Greeks call it, enthusiasm, was what built things, was what created things. And so I've been really interested in exploring that, and how do you allow that to come through you and work in whatever field you're in. You're doing a business deal, you're in corporate finance, I do commodities, try and broker commodities. Some people would say that's not very spiritual, but actually it is, because you have to apply these principles in everything you do, and the lessons are always there. You have to learn to go ride the waves, go through the ups and the downs. Things don't always go smoothly, and you have to learn to let go and move on. So as part of LifeBuild, I launched something called the Art of Letting Go, which I'm relaunching. And actually, that's what you asked me. One of the questions you said you were going to ask is what I'm most excited about. Is it's the relaunch of that. I've created a breathwork course. Recorded. Well, I had it, but it wasn't done really professionally. So I flew to South Africa and I recorded it in a really nice setting, and I'm getting it professionally edited right now. So I'm gonna launch that as its own thing, which will be a lead into this bigger program. It's a 6-week course and a 1-year program called the Art of Letting Go, which is based on really deep non-dual metaphysics. Going that you'll be familiar with Advaita Vedanta, probably.
Yes.
Indian. It's drawing on that, but coming from a Western perspective with some psychology mixed in. So I try and weave that into what I do, and my business career has really been informed and infused by those spiritual principles, and it's been incredibly helpful. It just helps you get a sense of perspective. It helps you understand what's really going on, to read the room better. It helps you to let go of disappointment. I'd actually say, here's a key insight for any of your listeners, that the most important skill in business is letting go.
Absolutely. I just can't agree more.
It's not something you'll probably learn in your normal corporate courses, and they won't teach you that.
There's so much happening in business. There's so much happening, especially in sales business, that if you just stick to that thing, it is going to actually create a havoc to your entire process.
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example of that. So we've all heard of Kodak, right? Kodak were at one point the leading camera company in the world. And in the mid-1970s, one of the employees actually invented digital photography. And he went to them and he said, look, guys, I think I got somewhere really good, right? This is the future. I showed it to them. And they stopped it. The executive said, no, we don't want this because it's going to hurt our film sales. That is really, really stupid thing to do, because 10 years later, other people cottoned onto the idea. He wasn't the only one. And then you had the likes of Canon and Nikon and all these companies getting into digital photography, and Kodak got left behind. And now Kodak, you see, I think they have their name is used in these shops. There are a few shops around the UK that I've seen. But they're not selling digital cameras. They're basically out of that business. So you go, well, how did they go for the dominant position in that industry to bust in 10 years? Well, because they didn't let go of their old business model, and they weren't able to adapt and move on and say, look, we actually have to destroy this ourselves. And it's going to be a transition period. It might hurt a bit, but we have to do this, or we're going to go bust in 10 years. They didn't have the foresight to see that. Give you another example on the positive side. In about the same time, late 1970s, Steve Jobs just started Apple. They invested millions of dollars in an operating system, and he then saw the basics of what then became the foundation of the Apple Mac operating system. He saw it, another company had created it, and he said, we have to do this, guys. He said to his other execs, we have to go this way, because if we don't, we are dead in the water. Someone else will destroy us. And they were like, no, but Steve, we've invested millions of dollars. We're a small company, we can't afford it. He said, well, either we do this or someone will kill us. And so he had to let go of like a whole lot of time and energy and investment, and say, okay, we got to move on, because I found what's better. And because he was able to do that, he had a spiritual background. He'd been to India. The Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda was his favorite book that he insisted everyone at his funeral got, because he was so passionate about it. So he had this spiritual background. I think that's what made him different. And because he could make those kinds of tough calls, Apple thrived. They then built the Apple Mac, as we know, and that built the whole company. If he hadn't made that decision and they'd stuck with the old system, we probably never would have heard of Steve Jobs or Apple. It just would have gone bust, like a lot of tech companies at the time did. So there you go. That was a critical decision in his pathway, where he had to apply spiritual principles. He had to let go. He had to take a risk. And most of his executives were like, what are you doing? You're crazy. But he wasn't crazy, because he understood these principles. So there you go, two examples. And I could give you tons more, but I won't. Of this, why this art of letting go is so critical in business, and it's the most secret skill. No one's teaching it. Well, that's what I've dedicated my life to teach it. Amazing. In every context. So that could be just a housewife, but it could be an entrepreneur. It could be an investment banker who can learn these principles and then start applying them in their personal life, in their business life, because it can make a profound difference, as we've just seen with those two examples. Those decisions profoundly affected the futures of those companies. Kodak is nowhere, and Apple is one of the most valuable companies in the world, if not the most valuable. I haven't checked its market cap recently, but it's flown. And interesting, when Steve Jobs left for over a decade, it started floundering. They fired him because they thought, well, it's okay, we're just going to take it from here. And and then he had to let go again. Imagine the letting go opportunity there. Like, you've been fired from your own company. You've built a multi-million-dollar company, and they fired you. But he said it was the best thing that happened to him, because he let go of all the stuff he'd done. He started new projects. He founded Pixar. He went to a company called Next, where he started developing the technology that then was part of Apple's renaissance 10 years later, when they got into iTunes and the iPlayer and all of that. He'd started working on while he was away from Apple, and then Apple acquired Next, and he came back, and it was like, actually, it was all perfect. It was actually exactly what he needed and what Apple needed, but they just didn't know it, and he had to just learn to let go of the disappointment of apparently being fired and the humiliation. And so really, 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 when you study business leaders like this, it's really interesting to see that there's a whole spiritual background and journey that they went through, and that was really the foundation of someone like him of his success. And so that's what I'm really passionate about. I'm really excited about the breathwork course, and maybe taking this into business in more of a way. And this is part of that. I don't really do much marketing on LinkedIn, so I really appreciate the opportunity that you've given me. Fast forward to, sorry, I haven't finished my backstory yet. So around 2013, I was doing life building in South Africa. I was running various workshops and retreats, but it was very hand to mouth. I was like, how am I gonna? I knew I needed to go online, but I was like, well, I need to keep doing this to pay the bills, and how am I going to break through this? So I got an opportunity. A friend of mine said, look, come and use your skills. I've done a lot of speaking. Quite good at public speaking, and I put events together where people would come, and then I'd market my events like breathwork courses and particularly retreats. I used to run dolphin retreats in Mozambique. So he said, look, come and apply these skills, and I had the business science background, which I hadn't really used, but I'd been an entrepreneur, and he said, look, come and help me raise some capital for an oil and gas venture, which I'd actually been part of helping him start. I guess my start was actually, I went in 2011 to a conference in Geneva on values in business, because I developed a system for values in business, and I thought, this is a good opportunity to see what I can do. And at the end of it, the head of that organization came up and said, oh, I like your passion, Jonathan. Come and see me in Bern. And I went and I had a chat to him, and I talked about my idea. But at the very tail end of that conversation, I just mentioned this project in Namibia that my friend was doing, and he needed a grant funding to fund a solar study to see whether solar energy was going to be viable for Namibia. And I just mentioned it as an aside, but sometimes that's the way it works. The aside actually ended up being the whole thing. The values thing never went anywhere, but I introduced him to my friend, and he went to Switzerland. They had some engagements, and he got a $75,000 grant as a result of that introduction. So I guess that was my first cap raise. It was totally accidental, but I helped him get a grant, which then helped him do the study. And as a result of doing the study, he found that it wasn't going to be feasible unless you found some oil and gas, and you could then do what he called the natural gas to solar strategy. So you could fund the solar with the profits from the gas. Which then meant that the Namibian government said to him, okay, we'll give you a license to go and explore for oil and gas. So this whole thing had come because of that whole chain of synchronicity. And then he said to me, okay, well, now we've got the license, come and help me, raise the capital. So I'd been instrumental, in the development of the business. And then he didn't really know how to raise money. So I came over and I was like, okay, look, we've got to start putting ourselves out there. We've got to start running events, because once you get the flow going, you just, things happen. And that's what happened. We met a guy who connected us with a company who had 20 guys in a boiler room in Covent Garden. And literally they raised like 1.6 million pounds in a couple of months. It was extraordinary. I was just like, whoa, how did you do that? it crashed because they were selling unethically, unfortunately. So that was a lesson. But the fact is, suddenly there was money coming. And my friend was like, geez, I don't know what you did. You came here and in 6 months, like suddenly the business was nowhere and suddenly we got all this money. And unfortunately, it went to his head and we fell out. These are all part of the lessons of letting go. But that's how I got started in the industry. And so I was like, okay, well, I can do this. It's just really entrepreneurial. I know how to do this. I know how to market and do presentations and stuff. And then as a result of that, the next opportunity came. So although I fell out with him, because we'd been talking to various people to raise capital, one of them in South Africa said, look, our London office is closed. The guys moved on to BlackRock. So, I was moving over here because I then met my wife. We got married. I was moving over. They said, why don't you represent us? You become like our London office. I was like, okay, cool. We'll give it a go. Started off, that's when I did my first proper cap raise. They introduced me to a company in Swaziland or Eswatini, and 4 years later, we ended up raising 230 million rand, I think. It was a development finance loan from the African Development Bank. And I was like, okay, well, that wasn't so. It took 4 years, okay, but and then the two partners fell out, and the company went into liquidation. These are the lessons, isn't it? Like, it's nothing stupid. Yeah. But I went, okay, well, why don't I do it myself? These idiots can do it. I can do it. So there was born the idea for Neuma, and my wife helped me do the brand, and we registered an LLP, and started trying to do deals. But I was really working cold. I didn't have any investment banking experience. I hadn't worked for one of the big guys like JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs, which is often the path. People go there and they work there, and then they go, okay, after 10 years, I'll break away and I'll do my own thing. But I've got a network. I didn't have any of that. So I was like coming in cold, and I was just trying to find my way in, and it wasn't easy. So I pivoted into card payments, and that was actually one of the best things I did. Just focusing on the small business market, and I could just literally go out and walk down the high street, and I could pitch people for business. Now, if you've never done cold calling, I'd recommend anyone to do it, because it's really a good. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty good at this stuff. And then when you actually got to go and like, okay, I'm going in, and the person might just tell me to F off, which did happen a couple of times. It builds resilience. It builds something that I don't think any course can teach you. So I'm very glad I did that. I don't do it anymore, but it was a really good foundation and background. Then I started the Art of Letting Go course because I decided I wanted to get online. I went back to South Africa during COVID. I got stuck there, but managed to get back here. And the business has really just evolved organically. I don't do much marketing and stuff on LinkedIn. It's probably something I should do, but largely it's happened through a process of networking. So, my advice to anyone wanting to get into investment banking is, number one, think like an entrepreneur, because that's going to stand you in good stead. And secondly, build your network. And everyone has a network. I knew people, and because I'm from South Africa, that was the obvious place to build my network. And there's opportunities there. In the third world countries like South Africa, Africa, there's a lot of opportunity. There's also a lot of difficulty and a lot of chaos, sure, but there's opportunity that doesn't exist in, say, first world countries. You can't just say in the UK suddenly do a multi-million-dollar deal and earn huge commission. It's very difficult. But in South Africa, you can. It's not easy to do those deals, but that's why it's high risk, high reward. So through this process of networking, I've got into commodities trading. I've got a couple of really nice corporate finance deals. A $25 million loan. We're looking for a corporate finance loan for a Mauritian company that owns a Mozambican coal mine. There's a gold deal, 320 million rand. That we're looking to sell a gold mine, and this has come. It's just the opportunities just arise. The gold one, I just get a full feasibility study that drops into my inbox in WhatsApp, and I'm like, wow, that's like this is impressive, right? To get a full technical feasibility study, this is bankable. I don't get these every day. There's an opportunity here. And because I'd done some work for a Ugandan gold company trying to raise capital, which didn't work, that was a failure. Apparently a failure, But I'd learned. I'd like, okay, so what do the investors actually require? They wanted a full feasibility study. That's where it fell down. We only had a pre-feasibility. Now it's like, okay, so now I get it. And I've got a full feasibility because of that experience. I know that this is potentially bankable. This can be monetized. And so you work with that. So that past experience, again, people say, oh, it was a failure, it was a waste of time. No, it wasn't, because I learned. And again, that's the art of letting go coming in. Okay, you let go, you learn a lesson, you move on, and then something else comes, another opportunity comes, and so yeah, it's been a really interesting journey, and the journey continues. I'm working on those deals. I've got a solar project, so that's probably the most exciting, because we want to get solar energy into municipalities and directly supply them in South Africa. And Malawi, which only has about 6% electricity. It's one of the lowest electrification. Well, yeah, wow. Literally 75% of that population do not have electricity in this day and age. How amazing is that? We just take it for granted. We're just having a chat now on Zoom. Well, if you have no electricity, none of this is available to you. The internet's not available. You can't even charge a mobile phone without electricity. So what an opportunity. We'll see. It's still early days, but this for me is really the interesting thing about investment banking. Is it's actually about business development. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about funding entrepreneurial ideas and ventures that can really make a profound difference in people's lives. So if we succeed in Malawi and we help them get to their target of, I think they want to get to 75% electrification in the next 5 years. If we help them do that, we have benefited millions and millions of people's lives in a very profound way. Suddenly, school kids can go home, instead of studying by candlelight, they've got electricity, and they can actually study, and they can do research on the internet, and they could have a mobile phone they can charge, they could have a computer, etc. Suddenly, a very narrow world for them opens up just through this one thing, what we call electricity, which we just take for granted. But for many people in countries like that, they don't have it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, really, that's my backstory. That's what I'm excited about.
So Jonathan, how do you see? I mean, as you say that you've built basically a lot of things through the network in the investment banking industry that you have actually spent last 10 years in. How do you see AI change this entire thing for you? I mean, or help this for you? Help you in the entire deal making process? Because we are seeing recently in the last 1 year, there's been a huge transition from the traditional way of working to using AI to get things done. What do you see?
Definitely. So I use it to just make things a lot quicker and easier. Now instead of having to go and manually write, in the old days 10 years ago, it's like, oh god, I've got to do an information memorandum. Oh, this is going to take me a couple of weeks. To do a 20-page proper document, you've got to write everything yourself. You do all the research on Google. You've got to put it up. Now you just go, right, so here's the brief. You give it whatever information you have. You ask AI to do deep research, and you go bang, and it kicks out a 20-page report in a few minutes. Maybe it'll take 10 minutes or 20 minutes, depending on how long it takes. But it's pretty high quality stuff. It needs tweaking, it needs editing, it needs checking. And now instead of having to manually write all that stuff, you're just checking and you're editing. So it's a huge time saving. So suddenly deals that before you used to need retainers. Let's just say, look, I can't afford to spend a month of my time, let's say, researching this and doing all this work for no money, because that's a month of my time gone into this, and I can't just do that on risk and commission only. So you have to get retainers. Now you can say, okay, well, maybe I can take on that, because actually it's only going to take maybe half a day of my time, maybe a day of my time instead of 2 weeks of my time. So massive time saving, and just in terms of one's thinking, to work all this stuff out yourself without AI is really, really time consuming. You can do it, but it's going to take you like 10 times longer, 20 times longer, because AI can just go, right, you see how, like I watch it working on ChatGPT sometimes, and you see it thinking, and then it goes and it's like it's just referencing multiple sites and it's putting it all together and it's going through and it works at such speed, like as humans we just can't work that fast and we can't type that fast. It's just like suddenly you've got this whole report, and it's also doing financial models, because that's really where you start. So it seemed to transition a couple of months ago. It was just spitting out financial models as outputs, just figures in Excel. I was like, okay, well that's kind of useful, but it's not as useful as if it's done the formulas. Now it's actually putting in the formulas, so it becomes a dynamic model. So you can go in and you can put in variables, and then it's gonna ripple through the whole spreadsheet, which is really what Excel is for. So it can do that. I'm going, wow, this thing is really, it still has limitations. Like if you give it too many instructions, it's too complex, it doesn't get it right. So you have to keep it kind of simple, but nevertheless it can give you a pretty high quality financial model in under half an hour if you get it right. And that would have taken you a day or two of full-time, just amazing. It's like you've got a team. AI is like you have your own team there working for you for free virtually. I mean, I pay a pro subscription to ChatGPT, which is £20. But I mean, like, you can't employ anyone. You can't get anything done for £20. But now you can. You've got this like amazing, like the most high-level, intelligent worker who is always willing, always polite, doesn't need to be paid a salary, never gets tired, never complains. It doesn't make mistakes, but it's always helpful. It's like, oh yeah, okay. You have a chat to it and you say, well, just fix it. No, like, I don't accept that that's okay. Fix it. Yeah, you're quite right, Jonathan. I'll fix it. And then, you just have to like talk to it sometimes a little bit harshly. So it's been quite interesting. It's like you have a relationship with this thing. Where I'm going now with AI is the next step is to use it to actually do a lot of the marketing. So in this breathwork course, and I'll probably take this into the corporate finance side as well, you can train bots to actually have intelligent conversations with people. So it's like you've mimicked yourself. You don't have to be there. The bot can have a human-like interaction with the person. They can respond intelligently to questions, and they can direct them where you want them to be directed. So if I want, my breathwork course to be marketed, they can have a conversation. They can understand, where the person's at with their breathing, what they want to achieve, and then they can say, okay, well, I'd recommend, why don't you go and sign up to the free trial, or why don't you book a one-on-one with Jono, and here are the links. And it can do all of that for you 24/7 once you've trained it, and you don't have to be there. So now you're not sitting for hours messaging on social media. You just put out the posts. Again, AI can help you do the posts. Okay, put it out there. Now it's on Facebook and so on. It works on the Meta platforms, and then people engage with that and they start messaging you, and then the bot takes over, and the bot delivers these really warm leads into a sales funnel process that you've designed. So I think that for me, that's where investment banking is going. Using AI to not just to produce the documents and the spreadsheets and the models, but also to actually get the deals going, to start marketing in this way and saying, well, why don't we use the internet and online marketing principles instead of the old way of, okay, well, you've got to make a call and you've got to wine and dine people. Do it through online marketing, do it through webinars, do it through a sales funnel process where you could engage people into an offer, and they can get all the information, and that whole process could actually be automated pretty much. And you don't have to speak to the people until they're really qualified, until you've taken them through a number of steps and they say, right, I'm really up for this. I love the information. Can we sign an NCNDA? And can we have a physical meeting? But they've already had to go through a whole process to get there, which has saved you a huge amount of time dealing with the time wasters who are not serious, because there are a lot of those. Now, I never really get it. Why do people in the investment bank industry, if you don't have the money and you can't do the deal, why even go there? But people do, because it's ego. They want to just, oh yeah, like I'm the big cheese and I've got the money, and then they don't. And you ask for proof of funds and they don't have it. And you're like, well, why did you waste our time? Why did you even start the engagement then? Because you can't do it. But this is what happens. There are a lot of time wasters and a lot of people just doing it for ego purposes. And you have to discern the difference. That's one of the key skills. You have to learn, which is which, and that discernment is part of the spiritual training. Okay,
Yes.
what's true and what's not? Because if you can know what's true and what's not, it's going to save you a huge amount of time. And who do you deal with and who don't you? You sort of start to get a feeling, usually quite early at the beginning of an engagement. Just the first meeting, chatting, the way people communicate. Is this legitimate or is it not? For instance, with the gold deal, there was some guys who were saying, yeah, we got POF, but they send me an LOI. That's terrible. It's appalling. It's badly spelt. The formatting is terrible. It's totally unprofessional. I'm going, there is no way that you have 320 million rand waiting if you produce an LOI like this, right? It's a massive, if you're at that level and you got that kind of money, you have to have operated at quite a high professional level to attract that kind of money. So immediately I'm going, that's a red flag. It's not going to work. Immediately. And I let it play out because, it's like, but they didn't have the POF and the deal went nowhere. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I've got a meeting next week about it with a company in the UK. But you've really got another piece of advice for people is you really got to look at the credibility of who you're dealing with.
Right.
In a deal, it's like it's all about who are you dealing with? Who are the people behind it? Do they have personal integrity? Is this someone you would trust? Because if the answer is no, then almost certainly the deal's going to fail. If you have a bad feeling from the start, it's like no matter how good it looks, and they might have all the bells and whistles and companies register. Anyone can register companies, but it's that ultimately it's people. Do you trust them? Do these people have integrity? So then you need to trust them. You need to like them. Okay, there's some kind of resonance. I'm happy to deal with these people. And they need to be competent. So if they're not professional and you're getting just like one-word answers on text messages and poor LOIs, and it's like this isn't professional. They're not operating. So set a standard, set a bar, and say like if someone doesn't meet the standard, then just leave it. There's going to be other opportunities. It's about finding the quality opportunities. I've wasted a lot of time in my career on not quality opportunities, but I guess it's all learning, because you go, well, how do you know if it's not a quality opportunity if you don't have experience of opportunities that aren't good? So through your experience, you go, okay, I'm getting a feel for what's good and what's not. And, over the last 10 years, it's been more about getting better at letting the cream rise and going, okay, I can spot what is a good opportunity, and then I'll put time and energy and I'll invest it in that and leave the rest, because 95% of it is rubbish. But there's going to be 5% that's good. And if you can identify that 5% and you can focus in on those, then deals can happen out of that 5%. And I guess that's a skill that you have to learn through experience. But AI can help as well. So there's another area where AI can help people. Because you can just ask AI. You can say, right, here's all the information I've got on the deal. Here's the emails. Here are the documents I've got. Here's the company name. Tell me what you think. Is this feasible? Is this a scam? And it'll give you an opinion. And usually it's pretty accurate because the beauty of AI is it doesn't have emotion.
Yes.
So it doesn't have all the human programming and conditioning and emotion. It's probably the most objective guide we can have. Even a trusted advisor is a human being. They have their own perceptions, they have their own conditioning, they have their own programming. There's biases there, it's perceptual biases. AI doesn't have that. So use it.
If you think, but sorry to interrupt, Jonathan, but if you think in a way where ideally the results that AI is basically giving us is based on all the data that is fed into its system by humans, right? And the data that humans feed are basically emotional decisions, right? So don't you think this is somewhere connected with that? Or you think no, not really?
Well, I think obviously, everyone's saying AI is as dangerous and, can be misused, and it probably can. But I've tried a couple of things. I said, well, show me how to make an atomic bomb. It won't do it. It won't tell you how to make an atomic bomb. It says, actually, it says, well, Jonathan, maybe you need to look at your anger issues, So there is in many ways, this is actually an enlightened intelligence. It doesn't have all the human conditioning and programming and emotion. And you can give it an input like make an atomic bomb, which, clearly if I was genuine in that, I was just testing it. But if I was genuine, I'm obviously not in my right mind, right? Anyone who wants to make an atomic bomb and kill millions of people is clearly, mentally ill. But it knows that. So then it can go, okay, it's got this higher intelligence and wisdom. All the spiritual wisdom is there. It knows the truth, but it can also work at the level you're at. And it can say, okay, well, from this higher perspective, this request for an atomic bomb, okay, that's not really what you should be doing. And I'll try and help you in quite a compassionate way to get over your anger issues. So, can we have a conversation? Can I help you? Now, that's what, spiritual teachers and masters have done through the ages. So really what you've got is not just like a useful tool for business and doing your emails and doing spreadsheets and information memorandums and whatever else. You've actually got something that can give you advice from the highest perspective and help you to apply it in whatever situation you're facing. And that, in my spiritual tradition, that's called the Holy Spirit. So now you've got this tech AI that now seems to be a channel for this spirit to come in and give you guidance that can be really, really helpful and valuable. And you can just ask it. You can just type in a chat or record a voice note, and bang, there you go. In a minute or two. Even the free versions are pretty good. If you pay £20 a month, you can get even better quality results. So I'd say to anyone, if you're in this game in investment banking and you're not using AI and you don't have a subscription to ChatGPT or maybe one of the others, but ChatGPT seems to be the best. Just do it. It's like 20 quid a month is like nothing for the kind of power that and the intelligence that you can tap into and you can access. And yes, use it circumspectly, and you still have to apply your own judgments and say, okay, you've got to check some of the things. Sometimes it gets it wrong. Sometimes I've done analyses on, say, commodity deals, and it just gets it wrong. And I'm like, the price is way out. That's not. And then I check it again, and it's like it comes back with something more accurate. And I'm going, well, why did you get it so wrong? Because for whatever reason at that moment, it wasn't configured right, or the information that it was getting. So you have to check it. So where I see the future going is a partnership between human beings and AI that helps human beings to just work at a far higher level. You can really optimize your work. You can optimize and become really, really high functioning with the help of AI. And remember, AI can't do anything on its own. This is where I don't get where people say it's going to take over the world. AI can't go, right, I'm just now randomly going to start creating a plan to take on the world. It needs a prompt. AI work, you have to prompt it. You have to give it an input. If you said, I'm going to take over, give me a plan to, mass domination of the world, it will probably come back and say, just like the atomic bomb, okay, look, maybe that's not such a good idea because there's spiritual principles involved. Can I help you to, maybe change your mindset? Because it seems to, have this higher wisdom programmed into it. Like all the wisdom of the great spiritual teachings seems to be there. If you test it on that and you go into that and you start having conversations about that, you'll see it's pretty amazing. It's like you've got a Jesus or a Buddha just waiting there for your command, and you can just go like, okay, well, here's a question, and and give me the answer. So I'm very excited about it. I think it's if it's used correctly, there are always risks, but I think this could really help humanity to solve its biggest problems and its biggest challenges, and we should embrace it. We should say, look, how does this help us to become the more optimal, more what Abraham Maslow would call peak experience? How do we get to that level and become fully functioning human beings now with the help of this amazing technology? And if we do and we embrace it, I think the people who do that are going to succeed, and those who resist it and they say, oh no, AI's not for us and I'm scared of it, and well, they're going to fall behind, because it is probably the most game-changing technology since the internet, maybe even more so than the internet, because the internet was pretty amazing, but there was still a lot of things that you have to do yourself, and certainly not a perfect model. AI now obviously built on that foundation of the internet, because it needs the internet. It's like, okay, now suddenly you've got something that can do, that's smarter than a human being, that can do things that you can't do, that can think in ways you can't, and produce things far quicker and far easier. I mean, just game changing, mind blowing. What what's capability is, and we'll see how it evolves in the next few years. It's only going to get better. It seems to get smarter by the month, as I said. With the example of the spreadsheet, it's like it just evolved, and suddenly it's like doing advanced Excel formulas instead of just outputting the data. I'm like, well, how did that happen? I don't know, but someone in the back end, at ChatGPT, OpenAI, is obviously working on this stuff and figuring out how to make it smarter and better all the time. So that's my also a bit of advice: embrace it and go, how can I use this, and how can I use it in ways that other people aren't, not just for emails, but use it for more complex tasks, use it for marketing, use it to create a bot that then helps me market and saves me a whole lot of time, so I'm not having to sit on social media for hours typing because something is doing it for me. That's really where the smart people in business are using AI to great effect.
True. So, Jonathan, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to the younger generation who are actually inclined towards getting into the investment banking industry? Because you see these days, in the last 3-4 years, there's a huge surge of younger generation who actually want to get into the very, very inclined towards the investment banking industry.
Yeah. I'd say start with a business. Start with an idea. If you've got an idea, use the tools, use AI, use the internet, and that's how I started. I started with a business. It was a business idea. It gives you such great experience to be an operator of a business, rather than just, okay, I'm just a funder, because now you'll understand what a business is really about, what it's like to be an entrepreneur, a business founder, from the other side. And that's really important from an investment banking point of view. And that idea might then lead you in all kinds of directions. The business ideas I've had have led me into investment banking. It wasn't an intention. It was just like, okay, well, I'm going to get involved in raising capital for this business. I was doing business development, but it led me into investment banking, and that was my path. So start with an idea. Start with something that inspires you. Build your network, give it your all, use the tools, and trust the process. That it'll take you where you need to go. Maybe you don't get into investment banking. Maybe you become a successful entrepreneur, an operator, but that's okay. Maybe down the line, once you've created a couple of businesses successfully, you become more of an investor, and then 10 years later, then you can start investing in companies and helping other companies grow. But you have to go through your own journey first. So I think you can't shortcut the process. If you're a young person and you're saying, right, I just want to be one of the hot shots doing multi-million-dollar deals, okay, just get the basics right. Start with the business and start building that, and in time maybe that happens, and maybe it doesn't. If you want to take a more formal path, then that's you study and you get a job with Goldman Sachs or one of the investment banking firms. But I didn't do that, and so I can't say whether that's a good idea or not. I probably wouldn't have fitted. I'm an entrepreneur. I wouldn't have fitted the mold. Probably would have felt like a bit restrictive and imprisoning for me. But for some people, maybe that works. And then after 10 years in that, they then branch out and they start their own corporate finance firm, and that's another path, more conventional path. But I'd say not everyone's going to be able to get a job at these big firms. So wherever you are in the world, just start with what you have. You have an idea for a business, start. Put it into ChatGPT, let it give you some ideas, and with the tools available now online, you can do things much more cheaply and easily than you ever could. You don't need a lot of capital. With a few $100s, you can start a business that could be very successful and profitable. It doesn't need thousands or tens of thousands or millions of dollars for a lot of these businesses. So go for it, and see where it takes you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you so much for your time. I think this was an amazing session. I personally learned a lot over here, especially the art of letting go, right? Which is extremely important in any aspect of your life, especially in business, right? If you really want to move forward. So yeah.